Greetings hobbyists, this is Artisans of Vol, and in this video we're having a look at my favourite way to set up face sets for sculpting and looking at a worked example of why I like to use this method. So I've been planning out this video for the last week, and then in an annoying coincidence Grant Abbott decided to do a video on face sets himself. Now if you follow me on YouTube there is a really good chance already that you follow Grant, but if you don't, check him out. He is by far and away, in my opinion, the best Blender content creator on YouTube by quite some way. He is absolutely fantastic and his videos are absolutely brilliant. Now with that in mind, I don't want to copy his video, even though it had a lot of the things that I was going to talk about. So do just go and look at that one and then come back here so you can see those other methods of creating face sets, but he did miss one out, and it's actually the one that I think is the most useful to me. Now, that's probably because he does a lot of sculpting, whereas I generally more work on hard surface models. So I approach this from a different point of view and maybe a slightly different setup. So I'm just going to quickly show the method that I find the most useful that he didn't discuss, and then give a quick example of why I like this so much and how I'd use it. So I've got the standard cube here, and in a shocking turn of events I'm not going to delete it. What I'm going to do is go into edge mode and just Control and E and subdivide this, I don't know, let's say 100 times. So we've got this going on. And we'll just quickly create a face set. Now, what you can do, as Grant shows, is set this up in a multitude of different ways, but the one he didn't put in is that I can select an edge. Let's come in and select this edge here, and we can Control and E, and then we can mark a seam. Now, this is normally used for working with UVs, but interestingly, we can use this for face sets. So I'm going to go into Sculpt mode, and you can see the face set menu just here. And I'm going to click that and click Initialize Face Set, and we can do this in a variety of different ways. For example, by sharp edges, by normals or materials. So if we set by normals, you can see that every single one of my different directions has a different face set. I'm just going to go here and click Face Sets from Visible to get rid of all of those. But because we've marked a seam now, I can click Face Sets, Initialize Face Sets, and by UV Seams. And you can see we get this cube divided. Now, what this means, and I think this is important to show that there's two versions of how this works, is if I've got my draw brush at the moment, it will just work all the way across. But if I come up here and click Face Sets, what that will do is if I start here, it won't let me go on to the other side, and if I start here, it won't let me go on to the other side this way, which is useful. Now, the other way you can do this, let's just turn that off, is you can do it specifically in the brushes. So if I come up to here to brush, I can click Auto Masking and Face Sets. So now with my draw brush, I can do that. But if I turn to another brush, let's say for example my crease, I can do that all the way across because this brush has got a different setting. It doesn't come in with the face sets on. Okay, so why is this useful? Well, I'm going to give one instance of why I quite like to do this, which is going to bring in a plane. Let's just rotate this on the y-axis by 90, and I'm going to create like a cape. So let's go into vertex mode, select those, S to scale them in, something like that, and then I want this cape to have an outline to it, like some edging. You often see this in a lot of different models. So let's just I to inset this a bit, I to inset again, and then I'm just going to Alt select that and E to extrude this out. So we've got our edging on our cape. There we go. What I'm now going to do is go into edge mode, and I'm going to select just to have this outer edge here, or the bit that's the lining, have a different face set. I could have actually done that. That was really silly. I could have just done that in face mode. Don't know what's going on. Maybe I'm tired. So let's Control and E, and I'm going to mark seams. You can also do this with sharps and things like that, but mark seams don't get in the way when I'm not going to be using UVs. So I might as well do it that way. Now, what that's going to allow me to do is set up my face set. So let's go into Sculpt mode, Face Set, Initialize Face Set, and by UV Seams, and you can see we've got the middle and the outside bit set up by these seams. Now what we can do is just go into Edge mode, and you'll notice that we can't really see anything here. And I'm just going to set this up so it's a bit more ready for sculpting. So we'll go there, and I'm just trying to make all of my inner bits squares. So about there will do. Then I'm just going to come over to my modifier panel, add a multi-resolution modifier, and to keep my corners sharp, I'm going to click Subdivide Simple. Now, I'm going to actually up that to about 4, And then importantly, for the sculpt, I'm going to then bring this down to 1. Now, as a bit of a fun game, if you can work out why I did it this way of going up to 4 and then down to 1, instead of just going to 1, doing the work and then later changing up to 4, tell me in the comment section. I will answer that at the end of the video. So what I'm going to do now is go into sculpt mode, and I'm going to shift and space, and we're going to go into our grab cloth brush. I'm going to F to make this nice and big, and I'm just going to start moving some things around. There we go. To make a couple of interesting looking ripples. Let's just do something a bit smaller there. So we're just rippling this a bit, but nothing too much. Something about there. And you can see this looks pretty interesting. But importantly, I haven't got any really big changes on my outer edging. It all looks pretty 3D printable. Now, what's going to be important here is if I go into sculpt mode again, and let's up this back to 4, so it's nice and smooth. If I want to use the draw brush, let's just turn off that face set, and if I wanted to add in some more creases, which is probably what I'm going to want to do, I'm going to want to make this a little bit more detailed in places. If I then did this here and could go like that, you can see the draw brush doesn't work very nicely with this outer edging. It basically puffs it up a little bit. And I don't want that. I want this to remain in a way that's going to be, one, quite easy to 3D print. We'd obviously add some thickness to this. But I don't want to basically start affecting and blobbing out, here we go, some of this and making it look wider. So instead, what I can do now is put on the face sets. And what I can do, let's come to sort of here, is add in some sort of additional creases and go to the edges. And importantly, I can then now smooth these towards the edge so that this only happens in the middle and it looks like it flows really smoothly. Now, importantly, what I do need to do for that is come to my smooth brush and set that up that that is also working off face sets. Now, I can come back to my draw brush now and hold down shift, and this will now start working on the smooth brush because that's what the shift button does. But you can see it doesn't affect that outer edging. So I can now do things, let's just do that a little bit there, and not cause any problems with my outer edge. Everything remains really nice and smooth the way that I initially set this up. Let's exaggerate this one a bit, sort of into there and have a nice crease. Let's just smooth it out a bit. And again, it's not going to affect that outer portion. So it's a nice way of keeping good control over where you're sculpting, but it will be on some nice precise lines that you set up with your initial face sets, as opposed to you having to create the face sets in sculpt mode, which in this instance could be quite annoying and not very precise. Anyway, just a quick video there. I thought it was interesting just to look at something from a different point of view. As I say, if you haven't already, go and check out Grant's video on this. It covers all the other methods really well. Do comment if you have another preferred method of adding in face sets that I or Grant haven't covered, and I hope to see you in the next video. So as I promised, here's that answer to the question that I posed earlier. So what I'm going to do is just make 2 duplicates of this, and we'll have a look at why we want to sometimes do this multi-resolution modifier in an odd order. So I'm going to select this one, and we're going to do a simple subdivide on it. Now the reason we want a simple subdivide is we want to keep these corners nice and sharp. If I actually just get rid of this and add in a separate multi-resolution modifier and click subdivide, you'll see what this does. And that might be what you want, especially if you up the levels. That could be perfectly interesting. But I don't want that, I want nice sharp edges. So let's add it in our multi-resolution modifier, and we're going to do our simple subdivide, which keeps the sharp edges. Now on this one, we'll do the same thing. So let's add in our multi-resolution modifier, and we're going to up this 1, 2, 3, 4, but then bring this down to 1. And we'll have a look at the difference. So at the moment, both of these are going to sculpt at a multi-resolution level of 1. So let's come into this one, go into sculpt mode, and we'll just shift and space, and we're going to go into our grab cloth brush. Let's F to make this bigger, and we'll just drag that to somewhere there, and drag this to somewhere here. Just something like that. And we'll do approximately the same thing to this one. So somewhere there, and then somewhere here. There we go. So anyway, let's come back into object mode, and for this one we can see this has maintained this really nice smooth curves, and as I up this back to 4, it keeps those nice smooth shapes that we want, while still maintaining the sharp edging, and that's really key. Whereas this one here, if we start upping our simple subdivision, so there we go, and there we go again, you can see how horrible this gets. And that's because as we do our simple subdivision, it decides on what's the sharp edges at the point we're making that subdivision, or it's taking place. So this one, we did it all at the beginning. So it knew where the sharp edges were, and then we drew it back, but we could always move it forward again. So when we put the sculpt level back up to 4, it's no problem. Whereas this one, it was at 1, we then moved it around and then started upping the sculpt level again with the simple subdivision, and it started looking for those sharp edges at that point. So this ends up a real mess. Anyway, hopefully you found that interesting as a little bit of a look into the multi-resolution modifier as well, and I hope you have a great day.